In this session, in the session of course, today we have been going through chapter 4, loops and the files of the textbook. Chapter 4 discusses the following main topics. We first introduced the increment and decrement operators for the use of loop. Then we talked about loop, while loop, and do while loop, and we discussed how to use the while and do while loop for input validation. This is a very important design pattern that you will be using. And not so much in this course, but in real life, you always need to validate the input. So this technique and the logic behind it is very important. The for loop, we discussed about it, using a counter to calculate the time of execution. And then we talked about how to use running total and the running multiplication and the sentinel values. We also briefly introduced nested loops, but just mentioning how it's defined, we will cover more of nested loops in the future, in a future session when we introduce multiple dimensions. And we discussed the break and continue statements, what they are used for, to break out of the loop or to break out of the current iteration. And we mentioned how to choose which loop style in your program. And we have a major discussion on file input and output. Open the file and perform your logic, and then close the file. And in order to open the file, either you need to create a print writer class for writing, or you need to create a scanner class for reading. And finally, we covered the generating random number with a random class. So now let's go through our homework. As always, I go to citytech.cuny.edu and goes to Blackboard. Inside my Blackboard, you can see I have, it's loading. I have this class. Getting into the class, you will see the content section where you can see I have multiple assignments. Some of them are not available to you yet, but let me show you assignment 3. Assignment 3 have 8 questions, but some of them are actually just printing out the screen share, the screenshot. So the first question is write a program that asks a user to enter 5 scores, 5 sales. Today's sales for 5 stores. Then the program should display a bar chart comparing each store sales. Create each bar in the bar chart by displaying a row of asterisks. Each asterisk should represent $100 of sales. So example is, if you enter 5 sales is 100, 120, 1200, 1800, 800, and 1900. You should see sales 10, 12, 18, 8, and the 19. Apparently, you will do a loop across these 5 stores. And which loop should you use, given that you know you need to type in 5? Okay, so this is a question I'll leave you to answer. And you take a screenshot of question 1 of your output. I want to see how you print out this page, this chart. And then the second question, the third question through to 7th question is a series of questions using different method for running total. The first question is to calculate income for the whole week. So the question is for a Joe's Pizza, a store called Joe's Pizza, your friendly neighborhood pizza shop. He wants to calculate, the owner, Joe, want to calculate the income for the whole week. So you know you want to enter 7 numbers. Each of this number represent that day's income. So you will receive 7 numbers and provide them a total of the income. Again, given that you know how many times of how many days you should have you have what loop structure should you use? The second question is similar but different. Still for Joe's Pizza. Now he wants to record each transaction through the day and get a sum at the end of the day. He would like to enter a transaction value. And then he will say, yes, there are more transactions. Then the computer program will keep on running until at the end of the day, after entering the last transaction value, he will type an N. And then computer program should give him a sum of cells and exit. This is what we call, this is one style of a Sentinel value that you are giving him an N. You are asking him to enter a yes or no after you receive the each transaction value. So it's like each time you entered $20, you put a yes, you put a Y, telling computer there are more to come. Then you put 15, another Y for more data to come, until at the end, after the last transaction, you put probably like $10. Then you will type an M, and the computer program should end. And you can think what transaction type, what loop type you should use. And similarly, based on the previous question, based on number 4, number 5 says, Joe liked the program you just made for him. However, after some test runs, he feels typing an additional Y is boring. After every transaction value is boring. He would like to remove this step. Instead, at the end of the day, he will type a -1. So every time instead of typing Y and N, you just type in your transaction. But at the end, once you type in -1, computer program should recognize this -1 as a signal to quit. So then it should give him a sum of cells and exit. This is question number 5. Question number 6 and 7 is about break statement and continue statement and about logic control. Joe decides that he wants to have some personal time as soon as he can make enough income. So in addition to regular transaction recording, he wants a logic to monitor the running total. If the total sales is greater than 100 of that day, the computer program should give him a sum of sales, tell him he can go home and exit. So if the running total reaches 100, the computer program will say, good job, Joe, you are done for the day's quota. Then give him a sum of sales and exit. So in addition to getting the transactions every time, you should also monitor the running total every time after you receive the transaction. A normal statement block should have the input of value transaction and the calculating the running sum. Here, after calculating the running sum, you also need to do a check. Make sure once the running sum reaches 100, perform these tasks. Give him the sum of cell, tell him he can go home and exit. And here, exit means going out of a loop. And of course, after going out of a loop, you will exit the program. Similarly, we have a similar challenge, which is Joe will only make 200 worth of pizza every day. So he can only make sales up to 200, but cannot exceed. So you need to modify your program so that if a running total exceeds 200, let's say you are calculating this the running total, and suddenly your running total is above 200 because he only made $200 of worth, so he cannot make these sales at all because the total goes to beyond 200. In this case, you will print a warning and do not add this value to running total. Instead, you will break out of this iteration and go back to the beginning of the loop, waiting for another transaction. So you are invalidating this transaction, but the loop is still running. And how should you do that? I'll leave it up to you. And the last question is a relatively easy one. You will write a program that asks the user for the name of 2 files. The first file should be open for reading, and second file should be open for writing. The program should read the content of first file, change all characters to uppercase, and store a result in the second file. The second file will be a copy of the first file, except that all characters will be uppercase. So in this case, you will open a file, read the content line by line. Each time you read a line, convert it to uppercase and output to second file. And keep on doing that, then you will see how it works. And there will be some interesting results to this question.